Okay, welcome back to the Nexus podcast. Uh, I've got Rosie and Brendan here with me today. We'll dive into that. This is where we talk about connected buildings and the playbooks behind them. This episode is specifically for energy managers who are focused on things like lowering their EUI, generating savings through energy programs. And today we're going to dig into things like HVAC sequence optimization. We'll probably touch on fault detection and diagnostics for energy savings and advanced supervisory control as well. We're going to talk about how those are being implemented in real connected buildings. This matters for energy teams because you're pressured to meet energy and sustainability goals all the time, but you're not always given the money and the resources you need to actually make those things happen. And it doesn't stop there. This is really important for facility managers too, because they're trying to maintain equipment and keep tenants happy, and they're dealing with how the maintenance and occupant experience can be impacted by energy savings. A quick note, if you're trying to stay on top of this space without waiting through all the vendor noise, we write a short newsletter called the Connected Buildings Briefing. It's bi-weekly. It's about a 5-minute breakdown of everything that we think is worth paying attention to. It's read by over 8,500 people every week now, or every other week. You can grab it in the show notes. We'll put the link there. My name is Brad Bonavita. I'm the head of product at Nexus Labs. And like I mentioned, I'm joined by Rosie, our COO. Rosie, how you doing?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi, Brad.
And our guest today is Brendan Robinson, Director of Facilities at Glenstone Museum in Maryland. Brendan, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you guys for having me.
Of course, we're excited to have you. We're going to get into Glenstone Museum's journey to have the lowest EUI of any art museum in the world. That's the goal. And how Brendan is applying sequence optimization, supervisory control, FDD, and a lot of other things to get there. Before we dive into that, although, we got to do our At the Nexus because we have quite a few updates, I think, since last time we did a podcast. So we got to get into that. So first, the last podcast was before Nexus Cast number 2, which was our virtual conference, half-day conference on condition-based maintenance. And I would say it was a great success. It was awesome. We had a bunch of people there, 5 presentations, 7 different demos from technology vendors, and a lot of networking time and ability for people to get to know each other. If you're a Nexus Pro member, the recordings of all those presentations are on our website now, so you can watch them. And one of the biggest things that we've been talking about for a while that was coming out of Nexus Cast 2 was our condition-based maintenance playbook. So I think James and I have talked about this like 2 or 3 times on the podcast, but we've been trying to distill all the different condition-based maintenance stories we've heard about throughout the years at Nexus into like one process that we think people follow. And we, I think, took into account over 60 different condition-based maintenance programs at the end of the day after all the stories we looked through. And that is published now. So there's a 13-step Nexus Labs condition-based maintenance playbook that you can download. It's free to download. We'll put that in the show notes too. We're really proud of it. It was a long time coming, so check that out. And now we're kind of turning the chapters. So Nexus Cast 3, which is on June 17th, is on HVAC sequence optimization. And that's what we're looking to talk to Brendan about here. That's kind of what we've been focusing on, and we'll come out with a playbook on HVAC sequence optimization as well. So look forward to that. Sign up for Nexus Cast number 3 if you haven't yet. And then we need to get into NexusCon. So Rosie, help me out. Do you have any NexusCon updates for us?
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, it feels like it's far away, but it's really right around the corner. I was just chatting with a couple of folks yesterday, and I realized like it's already May. NexusCon is in October. Like it's just a few short months away. So that's super exciting. But what that does mean is if you're listening and haven't bought your ticket yet or haven't told us that you're coming or, engaged with us, you should do that soon because we are planning a lot of great changes and activities and things based on obviously who's going to be there. And so we're taking that into account. We have a lot of great exhibitors that are coming from the sponsor side. We have a lot of great building owners that will be there. It's just really shaping up to be the best one yet. And obviously every year we're trying to up level. And I do really feel like this is going to be an up level from year 2. And hopefully we will keep doing that year over year based on all the feedback that we get from all of you listening and all of you who attend. So excited for that. We had abstracts that closed, when you're listening to this, the abstracts have already closed. And so we've gotten a bunch of really good ones and we're excited Brad, anything you want to share about the abstract specifically, just as a teaser for folks?
Yeah, well, on the logistics of the close thing, I've been kind of telling people that the deadline is passed. The application is still up if you want to submit. The way that we handle this is like our team now has transitioned from, going and requesting abstracts from people to now reviewing. We have, I think we have like over 70 now to go through, reviewing those and seeing where they fit and seeing what we have. So like our job of curating the agenda has started. You can still submit. Your chances of getting in are lesser the longer you take, because we're going to start building that agenda now. But yeah, I mean, please, if you're interested and haven't submitted yet, go ahead and do so, or reach out to us and we can, let you know how to do that. But yeah, the job kind of changes for us. It's exciting. Now we get to go through all these with fine tooth comb, figure out which ones fit together, iterate with people and get to the solid agenda. The other thing that I wanted to bring up on NexusCon is we've got our hotel room blocks. So if you have registered, you should have received an email to reserve your hotel room. The word on the street is that Detroit is extremely busy that week. There's already a couple of hotels that are sold out for that week. So I'm really trying to really inspire people, go book it. First of all,
Yeah,
we've got the most convenient hotels, because they're like close to the venue. That's where everyone's going to be. We also have better deals on those hotels than you can go get on your own. So this is in your best interest to do this quickly so that it doesn't become a problem for you.
we don't get anything if you book or don't book. Like it doesn't,
No,
but we
it's
just
like
want you to have a
we're
good
looking out.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please. I'm worried that if it sells out and someone doesn't do it and they're getting their hotel the day
yeah,
before, the week before, they're going to be Ubering from like the suburbs of Detroit to get to the venue or something,
totally.
and
We don't
they don't
want
want
that.
that. Yeah,
No, no, no. And then the last quick update, and then we'll get into this great conversation we have planned for today, is we do have group tickets available for NexusCon. That is now up on the NexusCon page. And so if you have a team of 3 or more that wants to attend, you'll get discounted tickets. They're really discounted. I mean, they're nearly as much as, if you bought them a couple months ago. And so please do that. Get your team together. We really recommend thinking holistically of like who from the different departments do you want represented at NexusCon, and having those people come, because that way you all can collaborate during the conference and after the conference. So that's exciting, and that's up on our site now.
awesome. Okay, so without further ado, that's our updates. Let's dive into what we've actually got here. So super excited to have Brendan on. Brendan spoke at NexusCon in 2025. Brendan, that was genuinely one of my favorite presentations of the whole event. It was super entertaining and fun to listen to. To get things kicked off, I want to do some rapid fire context setting. I always say rapid fire because James is like, we got to get through this part to the things people want to hear about. So we got to be fast. But
But I feel
Rosie,
like this is important for this one in specific. So maybe take a little bit of time. Like really, I don't think people who haven't been to the museum understand what we're talking about, or know, like if they don't live in this area, what, how special it is. So maybe you could tee up like what is it, but take a second and like set the stage, because it's
and
really
you
special.
can bring any rapid fire questions you have into this, Rosie. We're here for it. So the
Great.
most obvious one, Brendan, what is Glenstone Museum?
Well, thank you. So Glenstone it's an art museum. It's a contemporary art museum. We collect post-World War II works of art, and we're really focused on having a small but super high quality collection of the greatest art of our time that presents the major shifts in the way we think about and experience and understand art. And from an operations perspective, it seeks to completely reinvent the museum experience. So we're free, but ticketed. So only 300 people-ish are going to be there at any given time across a whole campus. And it creates a slow, unhurried, technology-free place where you can really just relax and connect with nature, connect with the architecture, and with the art, of course. So it's a pretty special place.
And what does like the campus look like? How big is it? How many
Yeah.
buildings?
Yeah, so we're in Potomac, Maryland, so right outside Washington, D.C. And so it's a residential rural area. We have 10 buildings of about 300,000 square feet total, although our biggest building is 200,000 square feet. and it's situated on just over 340 acres. So there's hiking trails, there's large monumental outdoor sculptures. We have 3 art-related buildings, 2 food venues, and then the remainder of the buildings are support. And it was originally built in 2006, so there's 2 sort of legacy 2006 buildings. And then we underwent a major expansion and opened as this free museum in 2018.
Love it. I want to go so bad.
Yeah.
So we mentioned you're the director of facilities, but what does that mean? Like, what is driving your daily work? What are your goals that your team is counting on you to achieve?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm a senior member of our operations team. So security, facilities, technology, and engineering are all parts of my team. Our goals, number one goal is experience. So we want our visitors, our staff, and the artists that we collaborate to have an amazing experience. So we're kind of known for really doing whatever an artist, one of our partner artists wants to bring their vision to life. We'll take on
Hmm.
projects that other museums won't. And as a result, we have some pretty amazing sort of site-specific installations. And so experience is number one. We're all about that. I have a duty to preserve and protect the art. Art museums are exceptionally demanding environments, right? So we have strict factors that don't go, the art never goes home. So it's always the right temperature, the right humidity, the right light levels, the right indoor air quality. And those always have to be up. They always have to be right. And so we work really hard to track these to make sure we're always getting it right. And then underpinning that is kind of the core values of our organization, which is really dedicated to long-term thinking and sustainability, which is through sequence optimization, the things we're going to talk about today is what we've tried to achieve.
Yeah. So you mentioned kind of the EUI journey in your NexusCon presentation. I have some notes here, but let me know if I get this right. So typical EUI is energy use intensity for anyone who isn't familiar with that acronym. The typical art museum you said is around like 169 EUI, and you guys started as you opened at 85, so significantly below that. Now you're somewhere around 42, which is significantly below that, and you're
Yeah.
aiming for 35 EUI, which would be, you believe, like the best out of any art museum in the world. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, that tracks. There was a study called Culture Over Carbon that was completed a few years ago, which kind of ranked all the various museum types by their EUI. And art museums were far and away the worst at that, the average being 169. Many are, are much higher than that. So we were purpose-built. We're going to build into the earth. So in our main building is really super efficient. Other buildings are LEED Platinum. So we were built to be sustainable from the start, and we did open with that 80 EUI. I think our design model was 120, but buildings generally always outperform those design models. But it's through our kind of willingness to change, to innovate, and to keep driving lower that we've then cut that in half. And I think that last work bringing us down to 80 to about 43 right now is the real work that was done, and by the teams that were before me and by our team today, is kind of continuing that tradition and that culture of innovation and really pushing it.
Yeah. I think that most people wouldn't just assume that an art museum would be a extremely high EUI building compared to others. But the way you said it earlier, I mean, I imagine that the main reason for that is because your quote unquote occupants are the pieces of art who never leave. So you pretty much are always in an occupied state. Yeah.
And Maryland's a tough environment. We have the very humid summers and dry winters. And in an art museum, if you're always driving to that 70 degrees, 50% relative humidity, it's a lot of pushing the air around and changing it, which burns a lot of energy.
Sure. Okay. Last of my rapid fire questions is, what does the facilities and energy team look like? What's the mix of in-house versus outsourced? How do you put together a team who actually takes care of these buildings?
Yeah, so on the engineering side, we're very much in-sourced. We're really throughout the organization, we're pretty heavily in-sourced. So I have plumbing, HVAC, electrical, auto mechanic, and general building technicians on the engineering team, and everyone is sort of extraordinarily cross-trained. It gives us a lot of institutional knowledge, and a lot of ability to be responsive, to have someone on call, to be there to make sure that we're achieving those things we want to do. We certainly outsource like certain specialty services, water treatment, fire. We have giant elevators that we need contractors for, and our chillers. We work with a local firm here to service those as well too. The biggest thing which I highlighted in NexusCon is our partnership with Schneider Electric. So we do have a BAS technician on site 1 day a week. In the past, we actually had that in-house, and then it's evolved into this strong sort of vendor partnership with Schneider Electric. We also have a fault detection technician who we have access, who is remote, but has full access to our facility, and we have access to their time. And so highlighted that a lot in my NexusCon presentation. We have a really strong relationship with them, and they bring a lot to the table as far as being able to run our facilities and change things and troubleshoot things on a weekly basis.
That's
Cool.
awesome. Very cool.
I especially liked how in your NexusCon presentation, I think you just gave like a really comprehensible and simple roadmap of the way that you see your building technologies evolving as you become more sustainable. So what I heard, what I wrote down that you kind of did in this hierarchy is it starts with building design, obviously, and trying to create a building that is efficient and good at its operations, which you guys obviously did. And then you really focused in NexusCon on getting your PMs in order, your preventative maintenance work orders, making sure that you're actually going and doing scheduled maintenance when it needs to be done before you guys layered on fault detection and diagnostics. And then, we'll get to the point that you're kind of looking at advanced supervisory control as like the next tier of that. Is that accurate? Is that kind of the evolution that you guys are on, and where are you in that whole evolution?
Yeah, that's absolutely very accurate. I try to believe in the tried and true, and marrying that with the cutting edge. And there's nothing more tried and true than a really strong preventative maintenance program. And so when I started, I think the team was a lot more focused on corrective maintenance. They were doing the preventive maintenance, but we sort of weren't doing as great a job of tracking it and keeping score of it being on time. And so we did go back, we've kind of fortified, as we like to call it here. We went back to basics and we updated our asset register, did a facility condition assessment, looked at every preventative maintenance schedule and kind of got the team on board, kept score, kept time and timeliness, and tracked all those things. So we got our preventative maintenance program above 90% on time, tracking 300 to 400 preventive maintenance checks a month. And then lo and behold, the corrective maintenance that we were tracking got done faster, and the numbers of them came down. That still fluctuates in time. Sometimes things break and it goes up again, but that was really getting the house in order and really prioritizing that, knowing that that's the unlock to doing all the other things. And so then I was fortunate we had a fault detection system in place, and it was pretty robust. It does a number of things for us. It identifies faults. It has dashboarding, and it has all of our histories there. So it was really getting the team then into that tool and using that as a way to force multiply and enhance the knowledge of the team by using fault detection, so that we get in there every week and we look at it. We then get joined by our partners at Schneider, who help us cull through that list and use it. So they've helped us build compliance dashboards to prove that we're meeting those temperature and dew point histories all the time. And so that's that, instead of you didn't get this done, it's kind of a positive feedback for the team. They try and push those numbers up higher. And we consolidated the lists to one. I'm a firm believer having like one force ranked list of faults in that fault detection system. And when I started, we sort of had 20 different lists. So we've consolidated that into one. And then the team can really just focus on it, see what the fault detection system is telling us, and use that as a chance to learn, and then go out in the field and try and see if those faults are real.
Mm-hmm. I have to ask one question selfishly about the condition-based maintenance kind of journey you just described, because this was such a big part of Nexus Cast. Was you mentioned getting the PMs in order first. That was kind of the whole Travis Kreiner of CBRE really honed in his presentation on that, and how people
Yep.
jump to FDD before they're doing all these silly things without FDD that they need to get structured right. My question is, did you guys find that you were uncovering scheduled maintenance that you guys were doing that was like not worth the value? And were you pulling out preventative maintenance things that you found weren't necessary?
I think we went through a roller coaster on that. So when the expanded museum first opened, we outsourced preventative maintenance for that first year as they hired up the team. And so I had this kind of robust document with that schedule that they were supposedly following. And then I had what was in our system, and I compared the two, and then we were way short. We were, there was a lot of stuff that was in that first year document that wasn't in our system. So I ramped that way up. At one point, we were doing 400 to 500 PMs a month in there. And then we kind of collectively reviewed that as a team, and then realized we were overkilling a few things and needed to right size it back down.
Gotcha.
So that was kind of the full roller coaster
Okay.
that we went through. And some things were skewed towards annuals versus quarterlies and things like that. And that as you move those things around, it greatly affects the number of checks.
Yeah. So your hierarchy involves, FDD and sequence operation in a way. When you're thinking about the outcomes that you're driving, do you separate the occupant experience and like the keeping the art happy from the energy? Like, are those all just kind of one set of outcomes? You're trying to make your occupants happy, keep your art stable, and lower your energy? Or in your head, do you kind of split the energy side from the occupant and art satisfaction side?
So I came out of like corporate offices prior to being here. So I've joked that we don't care about the people anymore. It's just the art, because I'm used to having high like office occupant complaints. But we really are trying to get everyone. The art is first and foremost. The art kind of wants to be in a range that is comfortable for people as well too, with that moderate humidity and moderate temperature and really high air quality. So thankfully, those things really don't play against each other. It is, if you were to look at a healthy buildings strategy, it would match a healthy art strategy. So I think there's a lot of synergy there as far as bringing them together. So I joke, but it is really a great experience for both the occupants and the artworks.
Cool.
That's awesome. I love that. A little tidbit on tangent real quick. My dad is an artist, Brandon, and he, has painted over 1,000 art, very prolific artist. And my house has a lot of art. And so whenever I leave my house, he always reminds me, like, make sure you don't shut the HVAC off, because, well, for many reasons, but also especially for the artwork that I already have at home. So I'm always thinking about that. And so I was going to ask you, like, how do you determine what the ideal environment is? But it sounds like pretty much a healthy building strategy is the one that you guys take.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Cool.
So I want to dive into HVAC sequence optimization. First, I should probably clarify like what I mean by that, I think, because I've been trying to make sure that it's clear what that means. When we talk about HVAC sequence optimization, I think what we mean is that there are so many buildings that are designed really well with a well-programmed system from the get-go, and then that just like over the years begins to drift, typically because it's not somebody's job to keep it operating exactly optimized. Schedules change, the way equipment actually physically moves changes. People override things because it's not working for a second, and now you've got it commanded to be on a manual override, and then no one knows what that override is for, so everyone's afraid to touch it, and you just have this drift, this entropy in your building. So we're kind of not talking about like these big capital improvements of putting in new higher energy efficient stuff, but how do you just maintain the HVAC building automation system so that you're either improving the energy, or lowering the energy consumption that it's using, or at least keeping it stable throughout. And when we were preparing for this, you brought up like 6 different examples of things that you guys have done here, and I would love to dive into these. But maybe kind of an overarching question is how, in your position, do like there's all these different things that you could go focus on to try to optimize your energy usage. How do you how does your team prioritize that? How do you look at one of these options versus the other and try to make a decision of which one you should go after first?
I think the easiest way to reference that is a um, maybe an art world sort of reference. If you've heard of something called a close read, um, and we get to spend a lot of time with art here. So a close read is when you just look deeply at a painting or a work of art for a very long piece of time, and those little details jump out at you. And I think we have a similar relationship with our smart building systems and our fault detection dashboards, um, our BAS dashboards, our alarms. We have a significant number of alarms turned on that come to our emails, and so we're trying to look deeply at this information and really let the data. Submetering is another great source of information. We want to let the data guide us to where the opportunities are. And so we started with building a great system that has a lot of redundancy that can give the outcomes that we want. And we measure those outcomes. We're delivering humidity, we're delivering temperature, we're delivering air quality in the zones that we want. And then we can start innovating, say, how can we do that in a more efficient way? How can we do that using less energy? And we're just letting the experience of our team and their knowledge be the guide, but also the data saying, hey, what is using the most energy? Let's look at that. Let's spend time there thinking about those things. So that's
Awesome.
the overarching.
What was that term again? I wasn't familiar with it.
Close read, the close read.
Love it. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So maybe we should. I mean, you could kind of take your pick on which of these you want to talk through, but I think it would give some, it would help to give the audience some concrete examples. Maybe to start, I'll recommend um, floating set points. You talked about how museums are typically, have fixed temperature and humidity, but you guys were able to kind of go beyond that. Can you explain what you did there?
Yeah, I think that's one of the more innovative things we did. So when you're in office space, you can do a nighttime setback, and the temperature can go way up. Um, in the art world, that's just not possible. There is some thinking out there. There's something called the Bizot Green Protocol that says we can relax our standards, and maybe humidity can go from 40% to 60%. Um, we don't believe in that necessarily, that it can fluctuate that quickly. We don't. Our conservators want. Uh, they don't mind if it's down closer to 40 or up higher to 60. They just don't want it diverging from set point quickly. So what we've done is have these floating set points. So in the winter, when it's dry outside and it's trying to warm, we will slowly 1/12 of a degree at a time start dropping the target for humidity that it's going to, and that's all hard coded in the sequence. So if the conditions are that it's calling for that humidification, we're going to slowly start bringing that down till we reach that bottom limit. And then it'll stay there for months until the weather starts changing and it gets humid outside and it starts calling for dehumidification. And then that will slowly step up. And so the art remains very consistent
Hmm.
in where it's at, and it very slowly moves up and slowly moves down. That has a profound impact on the amount of energy we use, because we're not constantly bringing that humidity up or down to those set points.
Sure.
And so there's some variations on this that people are doing, but that was an in-house innovation that our my predecessors had developed and has been hard coded. We've maintained that in there today.
Cool. That's fascinating. So it's really not so much about the exact humidity number, but the acceleration of change, the
Yeah.
rate of change of
Yeah,
your
if the
humidity.
system is calling for humidity, then we'll bring that down, and that program exists in each in each air handler and system. So it could be implemented at different times and different locations, and we're not hooking up an API to some weather forecaster and trying to do it externally. It's all just native in the system there in the sequence.
Cool. Are you able to, with any success, like try to isolate what kind of impact each one of these has on your EUI based on your submetering, or is there just too much going on that that's a fool's errand to try to?
I don't have those histories of the submeter, so we haven't done, I guess we haven't been as great at measurement and verification on that, but like we started by getting it right with air quality, and every innovation and every change we've made since then is expressly for the sole purpose of getting it right while using less energy. So I can say pretty confidently that sequence optimization has just been a huge part of our EUI strategy, but I can't necessarily attribute exact EUI improvements to any one intervention. I'd say floating set points are the biggest one, along with steam plant optimization. We had an electric steam plant that was installed. It was sort of two-stage steam boilers that were not under control. They were not under the building automation system, and they were just constantly chugging out 10 psi steam. And when we looked at the submetering, we realized they were 50% of the load of our large building, and these tiny, unimpressive looking boilers were using a whole heck of a lot of energy. And so we interconnected them, brought them under the building automation system, and created a sequence to treat them like one 4-stage boiler. And with our demand being lower, we can generally just run one of those 4. So we know for a fact that that had a huge impact on lowering our EUI. There's another one,
Cool.
and that was data led. The data led us to that, and then we thought of another way to do it.
Really, the story for all of these is the same. It was just like finding something that you can incrementally modulate without impacting performance, and being able to run that variable up and down slowly to give yourself the performance you need while saving energy.
Yeah,
that's great.
And a lot of these sequences are not earth shattering. They're in ASHRAE 36 advanced sequences. So we have demand controlled ventilation, and all of our fans were set to run for max occupancy per code for a cooling demand, and our actual occupancy is way less than that. So we've been able to lower fan speeds throughout our facilities, knowing that we have a CO2 sensor. So if a crowd were to show up, they would breathe, and those fans would ramp up to make them comfortable. That was, I think, more cutting edge a few years ago when it was done, and now it's a real standard practice that a lot of people are implementing.
Yeah. I was going to ask if that was based on CO2. Does it also make an impact at all that you guys have that reservation system where you know that you're only going to have 300 tickets out at a time?
It does, because we were we're socially distanced from the start. Yeah. We have just not a lot of demand, and it's pretty predictable about where people are going to go and when at different times of the day. So we're able to adjust certain things, and we can ramp up in the office in the morning on the days that people are showing up to make sure they're comfortable for a little bit, and in the middle of the day when we're at that peak occupancy in the museum building.
Yeah, cool. One of the questions I was going to ask you that I feel like, and now it's very clear why it's not here, but I was going to ask you why you didn't have in your list here like a start-stop schedule optimization of like ramp up and ramp down, but it's because you're not really ramping up and down very often, are you? You're keeping it relatively stable?
We're not, although that's some of the innovations that I've brought in more recently. So we are actually experimenting with a night setback of sorts. And it's really about outside air. So all of our outside air comes through, it's normally called a DOAS. We call it a DOAP, Direct Outdoor Air Processor. And the fresh air is really about a healthy building and the people. And so at night, when we're not occupied, we've been experimenting with going back to 100% return air. So the air in the space is of great quality for the art, and we can just sort of recycle that return air, and we don't have to, it's even less heating, cooling, humidifying, and dehumidifying that we have to do. So, and not all these things work, right? So that we started that, thought for sure it would be a winner, and our fan speeds went up at night because we created the return duct is smaller than the outside air duct, so we created a building pressurization sort of challenge there as well too. So we're fine tuning that, opening up the outside air a little bit at night, and balancing that. So not all these things work right away, but again, we have that freedom and that culture amongst our team to try and experiment and get better. So that's our version of a night setback, close to that optimal
Cool.
start-stop that you asked about.
I think that's a good segue. All those examples that you brought up, we're talking fairly technically about how you guys are, implementing them, but it's really the culture and the team that you've set up that's able to like focus on this and make, changes. And the way that it seemed like you were talking about at NexusCon is this concept of democratizing sequence writing capability. So multiple people on your team have the ability to change this and improve it and feel empowered to do so. Can you just explain that? Like, how did you get there, and how does that system work?
Sure. So I think it's the first time I've been. Normally your BAS tech would do the programming, or you would rarely touch the programming. And I think a number of us are in that a lot more often. And I think that really came from kind of our founding COO, Tony Cerveni, on our team. Really created that culture when he started. Steve Carrick was predecessor in my role. He's now our COO and my boss, and they sat around the table and brainstormed and taught themselves and gave themselves permission to experiment. And we've expanded that out to the team. So I've been to like Schneider Technician School with as of our chief engineer, other members of our team, and of course we have our Schneider Tech on weekly. And so if we want to tweak something or implement a new COO, put in alarm delays to help with alarming, any tweak set points, we just go in there and we do it. We have kind of strict protocols for you don't delete anything, you comment it out, so, and date and put your name of who made the change. So we have just some practices that help us undo things later or understand why things were done in the code if we get it wrong. And it's nerve-wracking when you do that the first time to see if you're going to break anything, but it's also fun and allows us to experiment, learn, fail fast, and do that continuous improvement over time.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how do the sequences that you're running as you're optimizing this, are you getting pretty far away from design sequences that came in from construction, or you feel like you're always trying to get back to there?
I think it's a mixture. We know where we've diverted from design intents, and we know where we haven't. So we kind of keep track of where we've diverged and where we've stayed the same.
Yeah,
I don't know how to answer that
yeah.
any differently
Basically a
than that.
combination, like you're staying there unless you see a specific upgrade that you can see on top of that, sounds like, to improve it.
Absolutely.
Do you, this is an art specific question, but I was curious, when the exhibit does get turned over, are you guys talking with the exhibit team about how that space needs to be maintained differently when the exhibit turns over?
Yeah, so the exhibition design is embedded in operations. So I get the opportunity to work very closely with our designers and our registration and conservation teams as new exhibitions come in. So we're there side to side, and not every exhibition design can afford a mechanical engineer. So we work closely to go through the exhibition, make sure we think there's we understand the requirements of whatever artwork's being put in there, and make sure we think we have a successful plan to sort of meet those requirements. Sometimes we're building walls, we're tearing them down. Those might have a thermostat or a sensor in them, so there's just the blocking and tackling. Sometimes we build rooms within rooms. Sometimes we put neons and things that generate lots of heat in those rooms. So there are times we need expert engineering design help. There's other times that we can handle it, but it's really about making sure we have the sensors in the space and the airflow and are able to measure it, because a lot of times we might create a microclimate within a portion of the room, and we have to use we have actually a lot of handheld instruments, and we can walk through manually and check things that way.
That's cool. Keeps it fresh for you guys. You've got a
Yeah.
different building all the time. It's awesome.
I alluded to this in next time, but we recently buried some sensors under art, which caused a lot of false readings in a microclimate. But we have a robust system with so many different HVAC zones. We were able to kind of work around that from the system side and not have to remove any art from the wall in order to move a sensor. So things like that do happen, but the team works collaboratively to get through them, because we know we're bringing this artwork to life. We're doing whatever it takes to meet that artist's vision, and we've got to do whatever it takes to protect that art the same way too.
Yeah.
And they're equally as important.
So the next frontier, well, you will always be doing HVAC optimization, I imagine. That's not something that ever really ends. That's kind of a message that we're trying to get to our community as well. But the next frontier, it sounds like that you're exploring, is advanced supervisory control in your chiller plant, which I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, means that you're looking at using advanced algorithms that can continually change your chiller's discharge temperature set point to be ideal for that moment based on tons of variables. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So if you look at our fault detection system, chiller faults are kind of like the number 1 and 2. It always, minimal chill water load or low chill water loop delta temperature comes back. So the fault detection system is screaming at us. There's an opportunity to optimize our chilled water plant. So we are working with Facile AI to do an AI agent chilled water temperature reset. I think they actually reset the set point on the condenser water side, which in turn impacts the chilled water pressure, is kind of how that works. And we were ready to launch it in the fall, and I didn't want to do it. It was getting cold. I didn't want to do it over the winter, so we've waited till now. And so the agent is live. We have their latest agent, and it's learning from our system. And probably about March 15th or May 15th of this year, in about 10 days, we will go ahead and turn over the reins to the agent and see how that does. And hopefully that'll be another big energy saving opportunity for us.
Cool. That's so exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool. Awesome. Okay, well, I think we can say with confidence that you have a mature HVAC sequence optimization and FDD program compared to a lot of people in our community. If you had a peer who was operating a similar set of buildings that had a good building automation system, but it didn't have FDD or advanced supervisory control, and they wanted to learn from you, what's the first step? What's the biggest piece of advice for that person to get going on this journey?
After joining NexusCon.
That's great.
Nice.
We didn't tell him to say
that.
that.
We did not. That is an unsponsored advertisement there.
So I would say I would get really clear on how your engineering team, your facilities team, actually supports the mission of your organization. What processes do you run that are vital? What services do you provide? And how can you measure the effectiveness of those things? And so that's a group conversation around a table. And then once you kind of are really sure of how you add value, then just match that up with the right technology. And then you can start having whatever vendor conversations you need to do that. Because if you're focused on asset lifecycle, that's your CMMS. It's a computerized maintenance management system. If you're focused on your equipment health and uptime, then that might be fault detection, might be the right thing for you. And if you have some like super high performance and you need something non-human, controlling your equipment to get that extreme performance or sustainability, then you may have to jump to that, advanced supervisory control. But there's basics and fundamentals and building blocks, and until you know how you add value to the organization, you can't have those technology discussions. And if you do know how you add value, like your pitches internally for budget will go much better, and you won't waste your time or the vendor's time, because you'll know a lot better what kind of technology you need, because you'll really understand your internal processes. So that would be my advice.
That's great. I think my takeaway is also just how important culture is to organizations that have mature connected building programs. Like, we're talking about all these technical things that you did that, you know, anybody could implement. They're just technical feats. But the culture of, like you said, you guys have a goal of having the best EUI. You guys allow this democratization of sequence. You have a great relationship with your vendors and Schneider and all these people. You have this culture that allows people to like improve the buildings, which I think is like, you know, key for a building to, or a portfolio of buildings to succeed at this level. So it's great.
Yeah, it's really cool. Brad, I have a quick question for you. That culture that Brad's talking about, and that's so evident, did that come from like the founders of the museum, like that vibe, or is it from like how did you guys get here?
It definitely came top down from the founder. So we have a strong commitment to improving performance, and you know, we are our founder owns a portfolio of many different companies and uses lots of processes to improve the performance and output of those companies. And so we are no different as a museum. So that culture definitely came from the top down from the beginning.
Cool. Yeah, I was wondering because I know it always is different from each company. It has a different sort of approach, and it's great to hear how you guys embody that in so many different aspects. It's really
Yeah.
awesome.
I'm gonna have our podcast guy put a picture of the museum in the show notes here too, because I feel like seeing some of the images that you had in your presentation at NexusCon really brings to life like how cool this museum is. I
Or
seriously
like
want
a
to go so
video.
bad.
We need to post a video on LinkedIn because I think that'll be like it's really
Yeah,
special
okay.
with
I'm
grounds
sure
and
you guys probably have like a good YouTube video
We have
that
tons
goes
of
over.
stuff. Yeah, I
Cool.
can help you guys find
okay.
the right content.
Nice. Yeah,
Cool.
I'd love to because I think that helps a lot. Okay, cool. All right. Well, let's wrap. Let's do some carve outs here. I will start us off. So my carve out is I am reading a book called The Indifferent Stars Above right now, which is about the Donner Party, which I knew basically nothing about. But the Donner Party was on the Oregon Trail from Illinois and then decided to divert towards California instead of Oregon, and were basically unaware of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Like, I mean, they're aware of them, but they did not realize how intense that was going to be. And they get trapped before they can get across in winter, and it's this crazy survival story. And two quick takeaways. First of all, it just always blows my mind. Like, this is like 3 to 4 generations of people ago. Like, it's so close that things were so different and difficult. And then the second one is they're on, I won't give anything away, but they're on this, like, a smaller group of them is on this journey to try to, you know, save them. And it's about a dozen people. All the women are great and like okay, and all the men are dying or like near death. Like, seriously, there's like 6 women and 6 men, and the women are surviving much better. They're handling the elements better, which I thought was interesting. And I don't know if cool is the right word, but girl power, Rosie.
Interesting. Yeah, girl power. I like that, right? Yeah,
how
I don't know why exactly that is, but like, I'm sure there's a bunch of theories of why, but that's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
Brandon, what
very
did
cool.
you ask if I know how it ends?
Do you know where this is, like a Titanic situation, or do you know how the book ends?
I'm not done with the book. I mean, I guess I don't want to give anything away. Not everyone lives, but not everyone dies. Let's just leave it there.
He's just
So
asking, do you know the ending?
I know quite a bit. I haven't
Okay.
physically finished the book. I still have
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
40
Okay.
pages left, so I don't like literally know the end, but I've got a pretty good concept of how this
Okay.
is wrapping
I
up.
think
So
they made it into a TV show or something. Does
did
that
it?
ring a bell for anyone? No?
I don't know.
I'll have to look
I
it up.
was totally clueless about this whole subject, and
Oh, were
people were
you?
talking,
Okay.
but yeah, so
Okay.
schooled up. All right, Brendan, you're up.
All right. So I've also been reading this book I brought called The Maintenance of Everything by Stuart Brand. He wrote a different book called How Buildings Learn. And so it just dropped recently, and it's all about maintenance, talking about people sailing around the world and cars, and just how you can set up systems to be sort of super precise or super simple. And it just gives me a lot of good like stories and fodder for the team, or ways of thinking about how we set stuff up so it can be maintained over time. And he's written a couple really good books that I enjoy professionally.
Our audience is going to love that book. We're definitely going to have to add that to the show notes as well. That's
I feel
great.
like we need a library, like a Nexus library. There's so many good
Yeah.
books that somehow, some way, some system. There's just so many good books that we always share.
I'm going to ask Claude if it can tell me every book recommendation that we've gotten on the podcast and
Oh my
see
God,
if I
that's a
can
great
make
idea,
that
Brad.
list. Yeah.
That's a good one. Okay. Such a good question. I always love this one. It's so fun. What's been up for me? I've been, getting more into crafting lately. I know that sounds really funny, but like not crafting, more like DIYing. I just feel like there's so many projects that I've always wanted to do where it feels like, oh, I'll get to that at some point. But then, like, when is that some point? What does that even mean? Like, I'm not retiring anytime soon. So, what is that? Where's the end? And so, I've been just starting to plug away at different things. And I got a laser, a laser, and that's been helping me like hang things. And it's just so helpful. So, the call out is if you don't own a laser, which probably most of you already do, but if you don't, you should get one because it is life changing and it makes everything way
You mean
easier.
like a laser leveler so that you
Yes,
can get, yeah.
correct.
Okay. I
Is that what
don't
it's
own one.
called? You don't own
I,
one? It's
I own
amazing.
a manual leveler, not a laser
Yeah,
one.
it doesn't just help with hanging things, it just helps you like the whole whatever you're doing. I mean, it is hanging something on a wall, but it just helps make the whole thing a lot easier. So, I'm sure they
Okay.
have a bunch at the museum probably.
Yeah, I bet they do.
We got it.
We got him. That's great. All right. Well, this has been fun, Brendan. Your program's awesome. If you are around the area, people should go to the Glenstone Museum. I will
Great.
be going sometime soon. Yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks for being on the pod.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, friends, thank you for listening to this episode. As we continue to grow our global community of changemakers, we need your help. For the next couple of months, we're challenging our listeners to share a link to their favorite Nexus episode on LinkedIn with a short post about why you listen. It would really, really help us out. Make sure to tag us in the post so we can see it. Have a good one.